All right, in today's video, we are going to look at a case study of an actual policy that was started back in 2016. We've got an individual who was and still is very analytical. He is an engineer. He's actually a lead network engineer at his company. Very, very technical, wants to understand the details of how the product works. Think of it this way, wants to know how the watch is built, not just that it tells time, which is perfectly fine. And a lot of times it's beneficial to ask questions that someone very technical or analytical does when it comes to a whole life insurance policy, because we can put the same dollar amount into a policy and have that policy A, look very, very strong with respect to cash value, or B, very, very ugly when we look at the actual cash value and how it performs over time. We'll touch on that and we'll go through a question he had or questions that he had and a lot of people ask when it comes to whole life insurance. To provide some details first, let's get on into it. What we have is as follows. The goal was cash value. He wanted to maximize the overall performance. He started the policy just about 8 years ago. His policy year 8 premium is coming up. And the original planned funding was as follows: $40,000 per year for 5 years. We are going to reference the original illustration. You'll see after the 5th year, he did plan to pay perhaps just the minimum premium, which is just about $5K. We'll go through a breakdown. But what we'll look at after we look at the illustration is the actual funding, as his actual funding, meaning what he paid into the policy each year, was not this. He paid different dollar amounts in. You'll get to see exactly what he paid in year over year, and then we will review the performance. So when he started the policy, he was 53 years old. A little bit on his background: network engineer, very analytical. And what we're going to look at, because of his analytical nature and what we do for a lot of individuals, is display the performance both in dollars and percentages. So what I mean when I say that, when I say dollars, is if I'm you, what I want to know here is how much is my policy growing by year over year? Where I can simply ask, how much money did I receive? How many total dollars did I get from the insurance company? Did I get $5,000, $10,000? What was the growth for this particular year? And then what's the total growth over any period of time? So over 10 years, if I paid in $200,000, and my cash value is $250,000, the total growth or total gain would be what? $50,000, everything above what I paid in. And then we'll look at the same thing with percentages, which we'll look at the yearly internal rate of return, which isolates what his policy grew by and is still growing by each year. And then the average internal rate of return, which, like the total cash value gain, will take into account all years and say, how much did I average over the past 10, 20, or 30 years? So let's get on into it. We'll begin with the original illustration. So what we have here is as follows. Very interesting. Annual net outlay. And this illustration is actually back from 2016, but we've got the $40,000 per year for the first 5 years. And then years 6 through 10, another $5,000 per year, which gets a total of $225,000 into the policy. So the original illustration displays a plan of getting $225,000 into the policy. And what we see from a performance standpoint, based on the company's dividend rate back then, cash value, and then also the total death benefit. So what do you notice here the first year? He paid in $40,000. How much does he have in cash value? Just about $33,700. And he received the top health rating, ultra preferred. So just about $33,700. If you're analytical, or perhaps even if you're not analytical, what are you going to ask when you see that? You paid in $40,000. You have $33,700. Even if we round up to $34,000, what's missing? $6,000. What is that? A simple answer could be the cost of insurance. Some like to use the phrase, that's the cost of doing business. Whatever it is, I still want to know, where is it actually going and can it be improved? In this particular case, here's the base policy insurance. What this represents is the base premium on the policy, $4,700 and change. In this example, we drove it as low as we could. We could tweak it a little bit just with how we design policies today, maybe to get that down to 43 or 4,400, but it's very, very close to the minimum, which the base premium does not show up in cash value with this product in the first and second policy year. This takes the biggest bite out of cash value. So he makes his premium payment, or a total payment of $40,000. We've got, if we round up, $34,000 that shows up in cash value. There's the biggest chunk that doesn't show up. What also does not show up? Term rider fees, PUA fees. There are fees deducted from PUA payments, and we've got other videos that provide a thorough breakdown on that. But my point is, where that is not, or why we don't see our full $40,000 show up, it's because of the cost of the premium, then also other small charges. But in the first and second year, we see those charges, and then when we look at year 2 to 3, look at this. Your cash value was $69,000. You added $40,000, and the next year the cash value was what? $111,000 and change. Did you get your full $40,000 back? Yes. An easy way to tell is if you just add $40,000 to $69,000, what do you get? $109,000. Cash value is worth $111,000. That means the gains are now exceeding the expenses on the policy, and we have a positive cash value growth year over year. So let's look at the actual performance, because this was valid for the first year, and then he changed his funding. So we've got a couple examples here. Let's start with this, just to make it simple. What's highlighted in yellow represents what has already happened, the payments he's made, and the actual cash value and death benefit figures that he received on his annual statement. So what we did is looked at what he paid in each year, and then what he actually received in total cash value, total dividends, and what the death benefit has appreciated to over time as well. So looking at this, what do we notice? Year 1, paid $40,000. Remember what that illustration showed? This exact figure, $33,699. So what we've got here, a couple things. We mentioned percentages earlier. Annual IRR, which stands for internal rate of return. And then I've got annual here. That's meant to be average internal rate of return. I'll correct that in a little bit. But this displays the average overall IRR. So year 1, if this is you paid in 40, you've got about 33.7, which no matter how you spin it, comes out to a loss of 15.75%. That's the yearly growth for that particular year, negative 15.75. Year 2, what was his actual payment here in 2017? $20,000. That brings his total funding up to $60,000. This is important to look at when we're tracking the average internal rate of return, your total funding that is. But I paid in 20. I did have $33,699. I paid my 20. If I got the full 20 back, it would have been worth what? $53,699. But I did not. I got less than that back. First 2 years are the worst years, which is why I see that annual IRR of negative 7.14%. Average IRR is still in the red. Year 3 increases his payment to $30,000. Total funding is now at $90,000. Cash value. I get my $30K back that year and a little bit more. The net growth rate, meaning dollars that I received from the insurance company, come out to 1.08%. And as I look at it year over year, what do you notice here? Paid in 30, then 2 years of 40, and you'll notice the break-even point is in year 6. If we go back to that original illustration, it was illustrated to break even when? Year 5, $200,000 was paid in, and he had just over $200 in cash value. Why does year 6? Partly because the dividend rate went down, but that doesn't have a huge impact. Here's the main reason why. These 3 years, especially year 2, underfunding the policy when the original plan was to max fund it at $40K year in and year out, that's typically what achieves in an early break-even point. Here, he reduced it, which is perfectly fine. What happened? The break even was delayed 1 year in this particular case. And then what he did in year 7, he wanted to make a catch-up payment or make up for some lost time and made a total payment of $53,000, which $253 in the policy, and he's got $262 and change. So what we see here, each year, the internal rate of return jumps, and by year 7, the average IRR is just over 1% because he's made total payments of $253,000, has $262. That's the IRR over 7 years. Again, the average, and then he's got that total death benefit as well. Now, what do you notice about year 8 in this example with respect to the internal rate of return? What's it at in year 7? Annual internal rate of return. 3%. What's it at in year 8? 4.54%. Why does it jump so much? Because you'll notice year 8 is the first year that is not highlighted in yellow. The reason why it jumps so much, because look at your funding here. It takes a big drop. $5,700 and change, which is the base premium plus a small PUA rider that he would continue to pay. If he continues to pay. Right now his plan is to pay just this as he's comfortable with it. But if he continues to pay this, I don't need to say that it's significantly reduced from prior years. Here's the important piece. This is the base premium and a little bit in PUAs. Anytime you add money to PUAs, there are fees associated with that. And your internal rate of return, your annual IRR, will show your net growth rate, net of all fees and everything that comes with the policy. But what you'll notice is if you reduce your PUA payment, for example, if I don't pay in $50,000 in year 8, so another $45K, that's another $45,000 that I'm not going to see a fee assessed to, which will drag down my overall internal rate of return. That's what happened each year. So you've got the compounding, which is working in your favor, and then when you make a payment for that particular year, it is going to pull down the IRR a little bit because I've got those PUA fees associated with the policy. Quick side note, maximizing your PUA rider still will result in the greatest overall cash value when you measure policy performance. But point to that long-winded explanation is once I reduce that, what happens? I see a nice jump there on the IRR, which a lot of people are attracted to that. Typically, you'll see this when someone heavily funds a policy and then they take their foot off the gas. And usually it's in cases like this. So he started the policy when he was 53. At the end of the first year, he was 54. And now he's 60, getting near retirement. I'd like to take my foot off the gas a little bit. Or a lot of times we see that. But we see it in this case too. So let's take a look at this guy. We ran 2 illustrations here, which will be fun with a slight difference. You may have noticed it already. 0 compared to still paying the premium. And he did ask the question, can I pay the premium this year or maybe a couple years and then stop? Do I have to pick one or the other? The answer is no, you don't have to pick one or the other. Yes, you can do what you mentioned where you can pay the premium for a couple years and then stop if that's what you want to do. You can even set it up in a manner or even follow a pattern of paying the premium in some years, then stopping, then resuming the premium payment. You've got some flexibility there, which is really, really nice. In this case, we are assuming that you stop the premium payment altogether with this reduced paid up option, which eliminates the premium. Even if you want to, you can't add anything else into the policy. But what it does do is give us a nice little jump on the internal rate of return, which is not drastic when we look at it compared to the example where we keep paying premiums. But I do see a slight increase there, which is nice, depending on how realistic it is that I continue to fund the policy. But options. And the nice thing about this is it's an option that we can exercise after a policy is in force. Last thing we will look at is the growth, but in dollars. So the exact same thing, but in dollars, looks like this. And really depending on what your preference is, that's the report I would look at. If you're working with us we can put both of them on a spreadsheet along with your full illustration. If you just like one, we can do that. Everyone's different. But what we've got here, exact same thing, continue to pay premium compared to the reduced paid up option. Instead of the IRR, you've got cash value increase, which isolates the yearly cash value increase. What are you getting net from the insurance company each year? For example, look at year 3. At the end of year 2, your cash value is $49,864. You pay in 30, you got your 30K back. We do not include that in the cash value increase because that's your money out of your pocket going into the policy. But we got that back plus another $866, meaning when you subtract $80,729 from $49,864, you're going to get $30,866. So subtract your payment, and that gives you the actual cash value increase, the money you received, that is, from the insurance company. The cash value gain, year 6, what do you notice? Total payments are at $200,000. Cash value is at $201,906. Hence the gain of $1,906. If we look at year 20, but these are nice reports just to make it a bit easier. If you're trying to crunch what is my policy actually growing by each year and what's the total growth of my policy, this does make it a bit easier. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button, subscribe for more. Let us know if you have any questions. Feel free to leave them in the comments below. And as always, I hope this helps. Thank you so much for watching. Hey guys, Steve Parisi here. If you enjoyed the content you just saw, please subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell for future videos. If you'd like more information or to see some custom policies for yourself, feel free to call or email our offices at the contact information below.